It was a normal day, or at least that's what I thought. A simple afternoon, the kind you don't notice until everything shifts and you realize the world you thought you knew is gone. All it took was one small thing. My stepson's belt snapped. That's it. Just a belt. But what happened next wasn't just surprising. It was devastating. And it left me questioning everything I thought I understood about my family. I could feel my pulse racing as I stared at Kyle. He stood there, his belt hanging awkwardly. His face a mixture of embarrassment and something else, something I couldn't quite place. I'd seen that look before, but never like this. "Can you fix it, Mom?" he asked, voice low. Like it was more than just the belt that was broken. I remember the way he looked at me when he said it. There was a heaviness in the air, something charged. And I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. But I shrugged it off. After all, it was just a belt, right? Nothing out of the ordinary. I nodded and gestured for him to come closer, not thinking twice about it. "Yeah, sure, let me just take a look." But when I reached for it, our hands brushed and it felt like electricity shot through me. I couldn't even explain it. His touch was gentle, innocent, yet somehow wrong. A tiny gesture, yet it set something off deep inside me, something I wasn't prepared for. I didn't pull away right away. And that's when I knew something had shifted. The air between us had become thick, heavy, and charged with something unspoken. It wasn't just about the belt. I took a step back, trying to shake the strange feeling that had settled in the pit of my stomach. My heart was racing, my breath coming quicker than it should have been. Why was I reacting this way? I was his stepmother. Nothing more, nothing less. But Kyle had never looked at me like that before. And the thought sent a chill down my spine. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice unusually soft. "You're acting different." I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks, but I forced a smile, trying to play it cool. "Yeah, I'm fine," I replied, though I wasn't. Not by a long shot. What had just happened? I fixed his belt quickly, not saying anything more. I needed to get out of there, to find a way to breathe. But when I handed it back to him, I saw it again. His eyes. Burning with something. Something I couldn't ignore. "I really appreciate it, Mom," he said, a little too quietly. There was that something in his voice again. It wasn't gratitude. It was longing. I could feel it like a tangible presence, and it made me feel exposed in a way I couldn't explain. I walked away before I could process what had just happened, but I couldn't escape it. That moment lingered in the air like a cloud I couldn't shake. I had been with Kyle for years. Ever since he was a kid, and I never once thought of him like this. But something was different now. He was different. And that look in his eyes, that tension between us, wasn't something I could just forget. The days that followed were even worse. It was as though the tension had grown between us, slowly wrapping around every interaction. Every time Kyle was near me, I felt the heat. His glances lingered longer. His proximity was more deliberate. The air between us became so thick that it was suffocating. He started showing up in places where he didn't need to be, standing just a little too close. At first, I tried to brush it off. Teenagers are unpredictable, right? But there was something about it, something that I couldn't shake. I knew it wasn't just in my head. One evening, I found myself alone in the kitchen. I was preparing dinner, my back turned to the door, when I felt him before I saw him. Kyle. Standing in the doorway, watching me. His presence was like a weight pressing down on my chest. "Mom," he said softly, his voice low and almost hesitant. "Can we talk?" I froze. I had no idea what to say. I had been avoiding this, avoiding him, but there was no escaping it anymore. My body went rigid, my stomach doing flips. "Sure," I said, turning around to face him. My voice much steadier than I felt. He took a few steps into the kitchen, his eyes never leaving mine. I couldn't bring myself to look away. About the other day, he began, voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what's going on with me, but I can't stop thinking about you. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My heart stopped. I didn't know how to respond. It was like the ground had shifted beneath me and I was falling, unable to stop. What do you mean? I managed to say, though my voice didn't sound like my own. His face was close now, too close, and I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I don't know, he whispered. It's just, you're not just my mom. You never were. You're so much more than that. The heat radiating off of him was unmistakable, and in that moment, I realized that everything I had thought about my life, my family, was about to change forever. I don't know how long we stood there in silence. My mind was reeling, my heart pounding. But before I could even process what he had said, before I could find a way to push him away, he stepped forward, his hand brushing my arm in a touch that was both gentle and filled with something darker. I've never felt this way before, he said, his voice trembling slightly. But I don't know how to stop it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him to stop, to never speak to me like this again. But all I could do was stand there, frozen, my breath shallow, my mind spinning. What was happening to us? I didn't know what to say, didn't know how to make sense of the tangled mess of emotions. But I knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning.